Hello, party people.
Party people?
Ready
oh,
to
yeah,
party.
that's us.
When are you back up?
Beginning of June, I think I want to say like the 6th through the 11th, something like that.
Nice. I may be rebuilding the studio then.
You mentioned that yesterday, and I'm like, oh, yeah. I wonder if Alex is going to have something for me to do.
Yeah, I got to, I'm ordering the speed rail today. Tomorrow. Sometime this week. But it's the first step.
Well, as it approaches, just keep me posted. Sage has finals that week, so there are some days I can't cover, or that I'm needed. Yep. But yeah, I'd love to skip out for a day.
Cool.
No, did I flash black? Boy, I hope this ATEM isn't dying. Wow, that's no good.
Yeah, that one I'd go ahead and push back. Thank you.
Guy, if I black out for any reason or if this ATEM fails, can you pick up reader?
Sure.
All right. Very good.
Don't black out, man.
I won't black out. Do not fade to black.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Jason, go ahead.
Mike Edwards in Brooklyn, New York asks, morning, everyone. What is the panel for the iSanKeys micro network panel for ATEM switchers? Comparing build quality and such with the ATEM 1ME Advanced Panel 10, and he includes a link.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, it's going to be it depends. It depends on a couple things. Budget, that thing's like $900. So if it works for you, it works for you. But one of the things that you'll notice when you get these less expensive panels is just the tactile feel of those buttons. If you go to a trade show like an NAB or an IBC or one of these shows where you can get your hands on this stuff or have a local reseller that'll let you borrow one, you got to look at muscle memory, like where are you going to be with your fingers during a show, and do you feel comfortable being able to hit those? So if you need to hit an ME or a super source, is that button there? Like on that panel, I don't think it even has super source, because the worst thing is a double punch. Like if you accidentally have it cut and then it cuts back really fast, and so that's why a lot of people don't like Stream Deck. So like you might want to use a combination where you have like a 32 and then you can use this to put some of your more frequently used operations. The other panels, like something like this thing from xKeys, you can program. So I use a combination of central control. So central control allows you to use older panels, even TriCaster panels. So basically, it acts as an intermediary to translate these buttons. So you're able to get a more expensive panel with that feel for less money, because central control core is like it's cheap when you start to compare like the $3,000 or $4,000 panels. But some of those, like the advanced panels, there's certain reasons why you want them. I mean, the macros being right there, ready to touch instead of having to program a lot of this stuff. But when I look at like the bigger shows that some of the shows that we're working on, there's 2, 3, 4 Stream Decks. So I mean, it's a combination of the panel, the larger panel, the 20, and then a bunch of Stream Decks. So it just depends on your workflow. If you're just doing like a couple cameras and some basic graphics, you could probably just get away with a regular panel and not go too crazy. But again, it comes down to budget.
Yeah, one thing that I'm curious about, I thought that there was a compact panel that they just released, or they talked about, and I don't see it on their site. So maybe it just isn't released yet, or they don't want to talk about it yet. So, but it is, because I think that there was if you're looking for something more compact and more cost effective, I felt like that was a pretty good. I'm just trying to find it. I'm a little confused that it's not on their site. So anyway, but it is a more compact panel from Blackmagic. One thing you always want to think about is, are you doing this for yourself or are you doing this for a client? If you're doing it for a client, try to stay away from third-party anything. Like just it has to do with if something goes wrong, there's a Chinese fire drill that happens. Who's going to end up in front of the bus? Anything that you do that people feel like isn't normal puts you much closer to the front of the bus. So I'm just telling you, like from a if you're doing it for yourself and you decide you want to do that, I looked at it. I didn't think that the build quality will be the same as this is the I think was what we were showing, but it's going to be heavier. It's probably going to be a little less functional. That's my, just looking at it, that's my initial impression. Everything's just kind of machined, and that they got some buttons and they put them in, and I'm sure it's fine, but I don't think I would put it into play. You have to have a really good reason to do something that isn't on brand if you're going to do it for clients, because they're going to come up and stand behind you, and they've stood behind a lot of people, and they're going to make a whole bunch of decisions about what you're doing based on that. And so you just have to be very, very careful of using things that feel a little more schlocky than normal. Next question.
Funsok Dorje in Dharamsala, India asks, "Hi panelists, looking for a monitor for my MultiView screen. Should I go for a 75 hertz or 100 hertz refresh rate? Please explain."
I don't think it really matters. I'll be honest. I think that I have some monitors that'll do 120 because I need 120 frames per second out of it. But I think there's 120s, there's 144s, there's some higher end ones that if you're a gamer might make sense. But the difference between 75 and 100, I just don't know. I don't know what you're buying for that. So if the 100 typically would be more, I mean, the things that I worry about is making sure that it can natively do 30 and 60. Those are the two that I'm concerned about it supporting, and not all monitors do. So you have to kind of know what they can do. And of course, you're overseas. I believe you're in India, so you're looking for 25 and 50, but just making sure that not all monitors support all those things. And so those ones are the ones that matter. Whether you can do 75 or 100, I don't know if it makes any real difference. Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Washington, D.C. writes in and says, 100-foot by 50-foot banquet/auction. Auction items are placed on the perimeter. Auctioneer walks the entire perimeter during the auction. Where would you place the speakers? Stage right, bar, food, far left, and he includes a diagram from YouTube.
And here's the diagram here. So he's got so I assume that what's happening here is that they're going to walk all the way around this area here. Now, the first thing is that if the auctioneer is using a handheld like an SM58 or something like that, and it's relatively close to their mouth, the main thing is not having too many loud things. So what I would probably do is, at least for me, is I try to put a variety of speakers around the outside edge, so that I didn't have to turn anything up very high. So because you're not going to be able to avoid being in front of those speakers. Now you could, put them on one side or the other, and then because if you put them over here, I don't know what's here. I guess these are tables. If you had them over here and you're all the way through, you may not have a lot of problems there. But if you use an SM58 and you make sure that, for this kind of thing, they need to be, it's like you just want to, I usually tell people to, if they're just getting started, tap your chin and then move out just a little bit. That's it. And you want to be right up to it. But if they're right up to it, I don't think they're going to have too much trouble. You probably still need to ring out the room. But I would probably put it on the whole. I would put little speakers on the whole perimeter rather than large speakers. It's a pretty big space, and to keep the overall volume low to do that. But you're going to have to experiment with it though. That's going to be that's the challenge. So the other thing is that if the speakers are up a little higher, what you don't want to do is have them at the same height as the person walking around. So if you can get them up to 12 or 12 feet or so, you're going to get them up above everybody else, above that mic. You may have a better chance, and you're really trying to carry into the depth, into the middle of the room anyway. So I think about those things. If you're standing right under the speaker, you can hear them. So I think that those would be the things that I would experiment with, and that's more based on when I was DJing. That's the kind of thing we would do for auctions. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, we first saw AI first translating and then lip matching speeches last year. Has this become widely accepted and adopted? And he includes a YouTube link.
Yeah, so this is what he was showing here is that they have, if we look at this here, let's see, you might be able to hear it, but they're basically every language. No, this is but basically they're rebuilding the thing. I don't know if this is really going to be something for documentaries or for news or for other things like that, because I think people are going to feel like it's. So what's happening though is they're using AI to rebuild the face to when they do the translation, and they're actually using his voice. So they're building a match of the actor's voice. They are then taking the performance. It can be AI or it can be a performance, and they're remapping it with the actor's voice and then rebuilding their mouth movements to match. This is going to be expected in Hollywood for movies. My guess is within the next 5 years, definitely within the next 10, but within the next 2 to 5 years, all movies are going to have this, because they're not trying to be authentic. They're just trying to make it a great experience for the people who are watching. It's going to mean that more people will go. Like if you think about how many movies that you go to, I mean, you may like subtitles, but a lot of people would love to go to a French movie and be able to see it in English, but not have to have the weird overdubbing or anything else, and just feel like you're watching a movie. So from a financial perspective, this just makes so much sense for Hollywood to go ahead and change do all these things. It doesn't necessarily mean that the people who used to do the voice dubbing for these actors are out of a job, because they're going to give the proper accent, the proper accents, the proper hits. I don't think that straight AI is going to do it as well as someone else, speaking over it, at least in the interim. And so, but I think that they may be out of a job at some point, because if you do enough of it, the person who does Morgan Freeman, for instance, does enough Morgan Freeman, they can use it to train the system to do it without them. So, and that's what these strikes have happened with SAG and everybody else, is that's what they're concerned about, is that now that AI is being trained on what they're doing, it can eventually replace them, especially if they're not in front of camera. So anyway, but I do think this is going to be normal. The people I've talked to in LA about this have just been like, oh, it's not just all the new movies. They're looking at, filling up their pipe for all the old movies, so like, how can we do, 8, 10, 20 languages for every movie that was in the top, 10 that year, going back 40 years. That's the kind of thing that people are talking about right now. So what isn't challenging for some people is always a boom for others, and that's what seems to be happening here. Next question.
Andre Dole in Berlin, Germany asks, any specific model recommendations for a USB stick that has ANC and plug fast?
Go ahead. And is fast.
Is fast, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so usually this would be an it depends, but this is just straight up the winner. This is the OWC. What is it called? I am blanking on the name of the product. The Envoy Pro Mini. I have used this directly into a 6K Pro and recorded raw directly onto it, and I have filled it up this terabyte. They can go up to 2 terabytes, and they are just incredible.
And it has both A and B and A and C. Yeah.
Yep, it does. It's all the same, and it flips around. Yeah,
and I have one too, and it's great. so I would definitely recommend it. Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Washington, D.C. asks, is there too much for an audio stage box and rack build? 1U Furman Power Conditioner, 2U Yamaha Tio1608-D2, 1U Cisco Switch, 1U Drawer, and 1U UPS.
First of all, you can never go too far. So anyway, I think that this looks good. I mean, a lot of times we don't necessarily have UPSs in our stage boxes. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. And we also oftentimes don't, depending on what you're doing, we oftentimes don't have a switch there. So unless you're plugging other things into the switch, I'm not sure what you would need that for. Typically, our stage boxes are in a smaller box, and they are, it's just an Ethernet to them, and they just have power. Having a UPS, I think, is a belt and suspenders thing that would make sense. I think that, but I'm not sure, and a drawer is great. I think that the only thing that, I guess Pedro asks if it's redundant, but the power can, I think that if you have a UPS, if you have a good solid UPS, you probably don't need the power conditioner. So, but I think the other thing that we get into is that when you have a stage box up there, you're competing with a space. You're on stage. There's a lot of other things going on. If you've got plenty of room, go ahead and build something bigger. But know that a lot of times when we're putting these in, we're trying to put it into a place that didn't have any space for it in the first place. So that's usually something you want to kind of keep in mind. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, Courtney, did you provide the monitor you used on film sets or just the graphics seen on the screens? And he includes visualalchemy.tv as the link. And
we're gonna push that one back because Courtney's not here. I think we were planning to push that one back, and somehow it stayed in the show. So we're going to send that back and go to the next question.
Yeah. Douglas Carmichael says, Guy, I'm very impressed with that xKeys panel. Could you easily connect it to mimoLive?
Go ahead, Guy.
I haven't done it. With mimoLive, I usually just use an iPad because the way that they have their integration set up, it's super easy to use an iPad. So I wound up just using that because I can get video inside of the buttons, which is really cool. And I can make the buttons the size that I want. So I'm mostly using just a regular iPad. This one, I believe you would be able to, though, because those are just commands. And then this is just a MIDI device. So at the end of the day, this is just a USB MIDI device. So as you push these buttons, if you have something on the other end that can detect what that button is, the call number, there's like some hexadecimal code, then I don't see why it wouldn't be able to. A quick ChatGPT search says that you can, but I don't use mimoLive like that. I use it with an iPad because it's more convenient to do so.
Yeah, and David Brady says mimoLive has native xKeys integration. So the answer is, you could plug that thing right in and just make it work. I have to admit, though, that for me, as same as Guy, I use the iPad, and it's because I can customize it. Like I can really customize the layout and everything else that I want to have there. And so that's what I want. I don't want to go back to physical boards. I want more iPad touchscreens, to control my edit, especially for things that you're doing the same over and over again. Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Washington, D.C. asks, Class 1 Bluetooth devices can transmit over 100 feet without falling apart. What do you use to input Bluetooth audio into your system, and at what range?
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. Anyone who's ever used Bluetooth in a very hostile environment knows that it really shouldn't be used in production. In this studio, in this room, I use Audinate adapters because they are the world's most perfect phone patch. I can use my Ubiquiti VoIP phone, or I can patch into my iPhone just beautifully, and it does a great job.
Yeah, JK Audio makes a variety of Bluetooth devices. So you have the Audinate to Dante. JK Audio does it to a wide variety of things that'll hook up to Bluetooth. It says Bluetooth devices can transmit 100 feet without falling apart. I would not try to get Bluetooth to work more than 10 feet in a production environment. And generally, if it's audio that mattered, I wouldn't use it at all. So that's, I know that it can in an uncontested environment, but I would not use Bluetooth in a production unless I was forced to. Next question.
David Brady in New York asks, how would you spec out a system for Caspar GC?
Caspar CG, I think, it got swapped around there, but yeah. So this is actually the graphics software that we use for this show, so it doesn't take very much to make it work. So a basic, you just need to make sure you have a slot because you need key fill. So you're going to need typically some kind of Blackmagic Duo to be there. I think there's one below the Duo that would work, but you just need two SDI outputs so that you can do key fill out. It's a PC that really doesn't need a lot of power. I think that and I don't know how to specifically spec a PC for this, but I would say if you got a basic gaming machine that had a modern basic gaming machine with an extra slot or two in it would be enough to get this to work. It wouldn't take very much to do that. But I don't know exactly what you need other than it's not very much. You might be able to do it on a $500 PC with an external, just a matter of almost the minimum PC to make that work. Next question.
Andre Dolay in Berlin says, just discovered this Blackmagic Crowdfilming project by Korn. Thoughts? And he includes the Blackmagic link.
So here it is here. You can see that what they did, I guess, is had 200 filmmakers with the Blackmagic camera actually shoot the footage here to build a concert video. Looks cool. I don't know much more than that other than we just saw it. It's a really interesting possibility of getting people to use their Blackmagic cameras, and I guess they may have, so all of these cameras were delivering to the Blackmagic cloud too. So you basically have all these cameras then delivering that back to the cloud. I imagine there was probably some work done. I haven't been able to read the whole article, but my guess is they probably gave them a fair amount of bandwidth to do that with over wireless or whatever. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami, Florida says, any tips for quickly previewing black animations on transparent background on Mac? EX left side of screenshot Finder spacebar preview seen on the right side, and he includes a link on Imager.
You want to show previewing black animations.
That always works for me for quick view. I just hit it.
It's this. This is the black over this. I guess over black. Typically I would just open that in QuickTime. QuickTime will just show that as a semi-transparent. You'll see it. I don't have any quick way of doing it. I'll open it up in QuickTime, or not, I'll not open it in QuickTime. I'm sorry. I will select the file and hit the space bar, and it should just pop up. And if it's got transparency, it'll show it underneath it in the operating system on a Mac. I'm pretty sure Jeff uses Macs. So I think that's how I would approach that. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes, in the AI dubbing technology looks very interesting. Do you think it'll be integrated into NLEs or be a specific role?
What we talked about earlier is probably going to be a specific service for quite some time. I don't think they're going to be adding that into Premiere or Resolve tomorrow. It definitely eventually will be there. I think that we're definitely going to see a place where these companies are going to either buy the technology, lease the technology, create their own version of it. But it's going to eventually, you can imagine, you're already having kind of creative fill technologies that are there. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't incorporate these into the NLEs at some point. So it's going to be a brave new world with that. Next question.
JJ McKenna in Sacabo, California asks, has the new Universe licensing affected your product choices or productions in any way recently?
All right, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, so yesterday they sent out an email saying that now you can have it just do certain functions and pay a lot lower price. So for installers, people that do like custom AV installs, they don't want to pay an ongoing yearly or every 3-year fee. And I got bit by this yesterday when I went to go use my Universe license. It was like, hey, your perpetual license is expired. And I'm like, dictionary.com perpetual means. And it was like, you guys don't get it. But I guess they say you can still use your old version up to that date when you acquired that license, but if you want the update, then you got to pay. And so I just got to go pay whatever. And so they don't have it easily available on the website to do that. But now looking at what I used to do in Universe and what we can now do with Bitfocus buttons, there's a lot more that you can do for $9 a month versus the amount that they're asking for just 3 devices. Bitfocus buttons is super powerful. I talked about it a little bit last night.
Are you able to show it?
Hours. I don't have it set up, but basically I took an AWS environment and I was able to set up a security key so that I can go in and turn on all my instances with Stream Deck buttons. So that's really cool to have that as an iPad. So a lot of people think that you got to buy a Stream Deck or you got to buy a Densitron or something to use buttons. You don't have to. You could just make it like this whole thing could be 50 buttons if I wanted to. It's amazing what you could do with it. So I have 9 AJ Key Pros, and I was able to program using buttons the ability to see all the time code on each one. So I fed time code into all 9 of these, so they have the same time code. And when I hit record on one, I have it as a gang view, so I can hit one and it triggers all 9 to record. So I have 8 ISOs plus program. So it's cool to be able to see on a customized interface this ability. And I could do it with Universe, and I used to do it with Universe, but now I could do it with buttons and not pay the monthly fee or tie up a license just for that rack build or just for that use. So I don't know if I'd be looking at Universe the way that I used to anymore, unless I needed the image inside. So where I liked Universe is you could do NDI video monitor inside of an interface. So that's pretty slick to have like faders plus buttons and have the video inside of one device. So you could hand a volunteer a tablet and just be like, here's the whole show. Whereas Stream Decks, you can't see video on the button. Well, it can't seem very big if you can't put little video previews of what you're going to cut to. So that's where something like Universe really, and there's people way more fluent in it than me, but I'm just talking about my basic use case for video production. There's so many other triggers that has for video walls and crazy live productions where you have certain DMX controls firing off for stage lights and things like that.
Next question.
Rajan Shendil in Los Angeles, California asks, what are your most dependable drives for spinning, NVMe, and USB-C?
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. Spinning, to me, there is power in numbers because there certainly isn't reliability in any one brand name that I know of. I'm going to sound like a fanboy here, but NVMe, USB-C is really just an interface. So OWC, I really like their enclosures and I really like their SSDs. It's one of the few brands that I have never, ever been able to kill.
Yeah, I have a lot of Seagates. So the Seagate Iron Wolves is what I've used for a long time. So those are the typical ones for spinning drives. I'm usually using Samsung for the NVMEs. And the USB-Cs, I have quite a few different ones depending on what I'm doing. Obviously, I have the OWC one that we talked about earlier. I've got some little SanDisk ones as well. It's one of the few places I buy SanDisks, but usually, and then I also have some Patriots that I've used in the past that are older A ones that I use. But usually, obviously the USB little USB sticks are usually just for transfer. So I'm usually just handing something off that isn't particularly large. As far as the drives, I still have a lot of the T5s from Samsung, and then I've built a lot of my own NVMe drives, and then the Oyen are the other ones that we've used. The Helix, I believe, is the one that I have quite a few of as well. I have some Crucials, the new, I think they're T10s. I got a bunch of those for shooting, and I will say that they work great up to 40% capacity. so we have used them successfully, but I just don't. Once they get over 40% capacity, their efficiency drops pretty dramatically. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, is this worth getting? It's the $539 FEELWORLD L4 10.1-inch touchscreen video switcher, 10.1-inch touchscreen, and includes the link to FEELWORLD.
And here it is. So it's a little built-in switcher all in one. And so I think, and it's got, you can touch it. Usually these touch devices, I don't think the touch screen is that valuable. It is interesting to have the touch screen built into what you're cutting. So I think that's kind of interesting as far as that goes. It's got some software here. I think that the problem that I would still have is basic feature sets that I'm used to with Blackmagic. I probably have a difficulty reproducing that here. That's going to be my guess. And so it'd be interesting to see that almost any small touch monitor is not very responsive compared to what you're used to on an iPad. And that's the problem. Next question.
Chris Fonte in Columbia, South Carolina asks, what codec does Zoom use? It looks really good these days compared to everything else.
There's a couple things that Zoom does. Number one is it can do 1080p. While other people will talk about 1080p, like Teams will talk about 1080p, that's only for one person talking to one person. As soon as you add another person, it's 720p max, and that 720p is pretty much the max for, I think, almost everybody else. WebEx might do 1080p, but no one ever sees WebEx because they really only sell to large companies at this point. So Zoom, A, runs more resolution, B, runs they run more bandwidth. So, oftentimes if you're looking at Teams, I think Teams runs at like 1.5 meg most of the time for this because they're very, Teams is not user-oriented. Teams is company-oriented. Companies don't like a lot of bandwidth being used, so they just kind of crush down on your bandwidth. So I know that when I'm on Teams, I'm on Teams meetings a couple times a day. That for some of the stuff I do, I look up at my bandwidth and I'm using 1.5, something in that range. So anyway, so I think that when you're doing 1080p with Zoom, you're getting 6.25, that at least by my measure, up, which is going to give you a much better signal than what you're getting there. Now, again, some people complain because, it's using so much bandwidth, but for those of us, I would love to see Zoom give us a 20 meg signal or a 40 meg signal up so that we can just do really, really high quality things. But I think that they're by far the highest quality. Andy says that it's a combination of AV1 in many situations, and then they use others in our own proprietary codec extensions. And so there you go. And it's, if you're looking for quality, it's nice having someone that can really answer the question in our chat. So anyway, the person who would know in our chat. So anyway, but if you're looking for quality for connection, there's really no other choice other than Zoom. The other ones are kind of, they're fine for little meetings. For people, like Teams is fine if it's part of your environment, and Meet is fine if you just want to make it easy to use a little web page and everything else. They're for little meetings and having chats and everything else. They're fine. If you decide you want to do production, I don't think that there's any other choice right now to make this actually work with the kind of thing that we're doing right now. And then if you want something very specialized, on the other side of Zoom is like Stream Voodoo, where you're now have these really high bandwidth WebRTC connections and spatial and everything else. So, but Zoom is kind of we want to have a round table and actually have that high quality. I think from what's released currently, I think it's the only option. Next question.
From the QR code, Scott in Calgary, Alberta, Canada asks, running a hybrid live event using Microsoft Teams, Town Hall. Remote audience hears a short static burst consistently every 22 seconds. Audio signal comes from mixer through Focusrite Scarlett into Teams. Any troubleshooting tips?
Scarlett. Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
I could just hear Alex's little brain going, Scarlet pain.
I just have to say, there is no single piece of equipment that has created more headaches and taken up more of my life than the Focusrite Scarlett. I know that people use it and they figure out how to make it work, but literally troubleshooting with people with Scarletts is the number one thing that has taken up more of my life in this realm than any other piece of equipment. And
I second that.
it is such a brutal piece of hardware. Like it's
so tip one is to ditch the Focusrite. That's the cheap, easy way. The second one that a friend of mine that does a lot of these events for the top 10 companies is he uses a Lenovo hub that is 4 teams, and with that he said it cleans up so many issues. So these are meant for conference rooms, and he uses them in productions, and that's how he gets his signals, his camera feeds in and out. And he says that's the problem solver for if you're using Teams for video production and hybrid events. So I would listen to him. Yeah,
I will say that it's expensive, and it may not work for you, but there has never been a better device than the USB Pre 2 for just, I need to get 2 channels into my computer. I have a couple of them left. At one point I had over 60 of them, and they, as far as I'm just going to plug this in and plug these in, I've got dip switches on the back that are going to do everything inside. It's still a tank to make that work. Rent one and see if the static burst every 22 seconds goes away. The only other thing that I would say around a short static burst is, what does that sound like? Does it have a pattern? If the static burst has a pattern, it probably means that someone's phone is sitting on top of the Scarlett. So, it's checking mail. And so that's the other option is you have a phone sitting on it, it's just going. If you hear that, if that's what it is, it means it's checking for texts every 22 seconds. Or somewhere near the wiring, or you have some kind of unbalanced signal somewhere that's pulling it up. That's the other thing is, are all your signals everywhere balanced? You really should not be using unbalanced anywhere in a production. You're always going to have problems. But that sounds like it could be a phone checking things every 22 seconds. Next question.
Leo Mendel in Richmond, London asks, I have a house of worship that has been using 2 GoPros since lockdown. They're mounted up high, but they need rebooting most weeks. They don't move camera angles during a service. So what cameras do you recommend as an upgrade?
There you go, Guy.
Yeah, a Red Raptor or a Grass Valley LDK.
I really think you should really think about the I think an Angenieux lens on an Arri LF. I mean, it's it'll look okay up there.
You will have to reboot it.
Yeah. I love the micro studios for this. I've gone in and out of so many micro studios, and what's nice about them is that you have a lot of camera control that's remote, so you can shade those cameras. If you're giving it a return signal, you can shade the camera. If you put a power zoom on it, this is what I think Jason's showing right now. If you put a power zoom on it, you can actually zoom in and out. With a handful of the Panasonic. That's a Panasonic lens? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the cheap. What is this? 45 to 75. This is only an HD version, but yeah, it's motor driven. I can do this remotely.
So there's a couple Panasonic lenses that will do that. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than the GoPros, but I will say that as a small production camera that you can put into something there and get a signal and control it and do all the other things. It's just such a great little camera for that. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I do like the line from Ada. If you look up on Google, just AIDA, they make a variety of different HDMI small form factor cameras, and then they also have some PTZs. A lot of House of Worships have settled on PTZ optics. I have a couple of PTZ optics here, the new Move SEs. They're about $1,000, so it depends on if you do need that zooming, pan, tilting, and zooming capability. So it depends on the budget. If you want to go and have multiples of things that don't move and just be able to cut around, or in that case, it's Marshall as well. So Marshall is another competitor to Ada. Again, this is where you go to trade shows, and it's nice to see the image quality of these things, and also look at the entire chain as to where it's going in and how far the run is, because sometimes converting something over, you start to run into other issues like the HDMI signal isn't strong enough, or there's latency, or there's other gotchas when you're. So it depends on what the output is and what it's going into, and if you want to get into something like NDI or VSCO over IP, or it opens up a can of worms as far as switchers and extrons and all kinds of things depending on where the flow needs to go to.
Next question.
JJ McKenna, again in Cabo, California, asks, while aware of the emulators available in Bitfocus Companion, does the Bitfocus buttons interface offer a similar page for creating network access?
I don't know. It should be programmable. I'll go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, so when you add a device that is a custom device, you can say, open this in a web browser. So it'll give you a QR code and you can scan that QR code, but you still do have to enter in that device that's hosting buttons, because it's just like Companion where you have a series of services that start in the background. So it'll say like 127.0.0.1 and you just need to change that address. So it's funny because they give you a QR code, but then you scan the QR code with your iPad and you're like, it's still a 1.27. So now I got to change that to whatever that IP address is of the host of buttons. So yes, you can preview all those buttons and everything. You just got to make sure that the computer's running and that you can access it. It's got to be on the same subnet. So you got to have access. If you could ping it, then you can hit it, and yeah, then it's a lot of fun. You got to dive in there. And again, last night I showed on Extra Hours a bunch of tutorials that are available for free regarding Bitfocus buttons. I encourage everybody to watch them because it's pretty powerful. Because it's not just when you push a button. You could make a button kick out a bunch of other modules across a button. So for like my AJ Key Pros, I have one button that I can now push, and then it spits out another 5 buttons that give me the rewind, fast forward, record, start, stop, and then I push it again and it closes up all that interface. So I'm able to save a lot of real estate and not have to have multiple Stream Decks. So I can see why they want to charge the $9 a month and get everybody on the wagon, even though it kind of irks me that the community built all these interfaces for free, and now this company's making money off of it. But if it's something that they're going to evolve and it's saving me time, which it is, because when I drag and drop my ATEM module on and I see 12 buttons appear that I used to have to manually make, it's pretty sweet to have that kind of stuff, because you'd be amazed at how many are in there for the ATEM. It's crazy how many are pre-built. All the MEs, all the keys. So you drop one button and it makes like 20 keys. So it's pretty crazy. I encourage everybody to watch those videos.
If you have questions and you don't want to log in to Makana, you don't want to talk to anyone, you don't want to think about any of the things sometime later in the day, of course, you can go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. Use that little QR code there. And you can just type your question in, put your name, your location, and your question in, and then we'll throw it into the feed and let other people vote on it. And maybe we'll get to it the next day or two. So askofficehours.global. Next question.
Rajan Shandil in Los Angeles, California asks, any drone technology that isn't DJI? They seem to be the only company making leaps in drones and aerial image stabilization.
There are other companies that are doing it. It's just that they have the advantage of scale. Like they just are they're reinvesting very quickly. They're organizing all of this, all of the technology together at a really high pace. And I think it's very, very hard to catch up. So when it comes to consumer, prosumer, and in some case, some specialty copters, the DJI is really kind of owns the space. Of course, there are a lot of larger drones that we use that are custom built, that are, they're much larger ones. There's obviously military ones that are in a whole different level of drone that's happening right now. But there's also a wide variety of octocopters and much faster ones and bigger ones, and they have much larger payloads. Those are all things that are available for filmmakers that we see, working. Like if you look at I believe that the one that they used, the one that all of us talk about is Adolescence, where they had a Ronin 4D, and they're walking along with this girl, and they hook it to a drone, and it takes off while they're still shooting, and that's a larger octocopter. I don't think that's it could be, but it could be one of the larger DJI drones, but I don't think it is. So those are the kind of things that that are there. But I think that DJI is just moving so quickly The new. I just watched a video about the new Mavic 4 Pro, and it's stunning. Like, you can have it up and running in 15, 20 seconds. And it's got doing 4K 120 in most cases. It's really powerful. So I think that they're going to, I just did an event with a Inspire 3, and what we did there, I've talked about it a couple times, so I'll keep it quick, but it's, we used what's called an RTK unit, or we used a GPS unit to do RTK, which basically allows us, if you think about it, it allowed us to build a movie rail in the sky, like within inches of accuracy. We can say, I want to be here, and then I want you to do this move, and I can control the camera and the position, all within, plus or minus an inch or two of it coming down and landing right where it needs to land for the end of the shot. And those kinds of things, there's not a lot of other drones that are commercially available under $10,000 that can do that. In fact, there's probably none. So that's where they're getting really good at this. Next question.
Andre Dolay in Berlin asks, any recommendations for a Thunderbolt 3 or 4 hub that has built-in NVMe slot and an Ethernet jack?
I'll go, Jason.
I have never seen that all completely in one. Usually I want those to actually be specifically separate units, and I do that on purpose. I like the Thunderbolt 5 hub from OWC, and then after that I can just, plug in anything that I need directly behind it.
Next question.
Chuck Swan in Bristol, Wisconsin asks, on our church's Zoom Pro account, Zoom runs at 25 frames a second in 720p only, even though we are sending out 2997 out of the ATEM. Any way to get 2997 at this account level?
Go ahead, Guy.
There's somebody in chat that's probably going to know the answer better than me. But from what I gather in previous instances where I saw something like this, it was the computer that was actually getting checked for how many cores it had and if it had the performance to ramp up to that level. So if you have a strong computer, if that's not the case, then I would also look at getting 1080 if you can. The one way to do it with a Zoom Pro account, if you just have the one seat, you could get Zoom events license for pay per attendee, which is about $120 a year. And once you get that license, it'll enable 1080p for meeting and for webinar. So that's a little trick where you don't have to use it all the time. You don't have to actually use Zoom events at all. You just get your meetings enabled for 1080. The bummer is that if you're using a meeting for your church's stuff and somebody comes in with an iPad, it is going to knock it back down to 720. But that flag alone might give you the option of going all the way up to 30. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and Chuck Swan said that he's using a Mac Pro M1 Pro, so probably not getting checked for CPUs. What were you saying?
I would check the network as well, because sometimes it'll check that as well. If he's going over Wi-Fi, it could flag it. So if he's got to be on Ethernet and then check that network, sometimes there's hops inside of it. I'm not sure of all the sequence of events that it does to check, but I know it's definitely cores, and it is over Wi-Fi. If it sees Wi-Fi as well, it can knock things down just for safety, to keep it, more of a fluid conversation than the hiccups. And that I'm sure there's a lot more tips and tricks to it. This might be a question where we got to bring in the big guns.
And he said it was wired too. Chuck, let us know what kind of bandwidth you're getting. But it does seem that, and Mickey said, is the ATEM selected directly as the camera in Zoom? So yeah, like, is it going through anything else? I'm sure Chuck and Mickey will go back and forth on the chat. So, by the way, if you want to get into the chat and you haven't seen it before, you can go to officehours.global/join, fill the form out. We'll send you an email. You can get links to Discord and Mukana as well. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, SSL released Meter Pro. Could you see it dethroning WLM as the meter of choice?
So this is the SSL meter here. I think this is the Meter Pro, which looks really nice. The skeuomorphic little I don't find these very useful. So, but it sounds like you can design whatever you want. So of course you can kind of build those out. So we'll we take a look at it. It looks pretty cool. I'm assuming if this would actually be interesting to me for $60. I can't quite see it in here whether if that's for surround. Because that's actually something, let's see here. I'm just trying to see if I can zoom up and actually see what it says. Yeah, so that's surround. That's interesting for me because it's really hard to find a cost-effective solution that reliably shows surround. I know that sounds like a crazy thing, but hard to find. So other things that do it, but they're quirky. So if this was not quirky, both Spectre and Sonic Atom kind of do it, but they oftentimes require resets, and they don't. When you're using 5.1, oftentimes you're in kind of some weird state, that they're not used to there. So, and Mickey points out that Isotope Insight and Viz LM does surround formats as well. So, yeah, and I think that, but the Isotope Insight is a plugin, right? I mean, I guess this is a plugin as well. So there you go. I really like standalone apps. I don't want to build a whole thing just to look at things. So we use Spectre or Sonic Atom most of the time. Spectre is still the best, in my opinion, on the Mac. It's still the best one as a general purpose usage. Obviously, there are smart and other things for analyzation, but as far as a simple, cost-effective, I want to turn something on and see everything, Spectre is still the best, in my opinion, on the Mac as a standalone. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, can you host a Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP web server on a Synology NAS as a development web server?
Go ahead, Jason.
Yes, and if you're asking that question, you probably shouldn't. Like, if you want your NAS to continue to be a NAS and you want it to be stable, please don't do this. Get a Raspberry Pi, let it catch on fire, and let your NAS be your NAS.
Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Washington, D.C. asks, 15 by 22-foot bedroom/home theater is 8,000 lumens bright enough and includes a link?
Just barely. Yeah, you should be able to. 8,000 lumens. He's looking at this Epson. Right
burn
now.
A hole in the ceiling.
Yeah, no, I think you do pretty well with 8,000 lumens. I mean, I've been pretty happy with about 4,000 lumens at that size, where you get a really nice bright experience. This is a 4K LCD. I think that Pedro, just let us know what you think when you have it. We highly recommend taking a look at it. You got to fill that whole wall, and as Mickey points out, depends on how bright or dark the room is. I'm going to assume you're going to build a room that, if you're going to spend $5,000 on the projector, you're going to build a room that is appropriate for that projector. So you're going to have some good sound. You're going to block out all the windows, and you're going to be able to watch a movie the way it's meant to be. So anyway, we'd love to hear. Let's see, if you have a 15-foot by 20, it depends on how tall your ceiling is too, how big of a screen you could put in there. But I think you could probably get a 10 or 12 inch screen. Remember that you also, when you're doing that projection, when you're paying that kind of money for it, think about the kind of screen. So like I use daylight screens pretty often for these, and so you want to make sure that you got a good reflective screen that's gonna sound good and allow you to really take full advantage of it. So I can't wait to hear more about your install. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, compare the Rave mixing console to the Flex mixing console and how these stack up for ease of use for small community radio stations, 8 stereo line inputs, 4 microphone inputs, 2 mix minus with talkback, and includes the Angry Audio mixing console's link.
Yeah, I have to admit, I looked at these desks. This question came up earlier, and I looked at these desks, and I just didn't feel like they were, for the price, I just didn't feel like they were the mix that I would use. Mickey said that I would not use either and would rather go with a broadcast desk from a reputable manufacturer. I think Angry Audio makes good stuff, so I'm not going to say reputable or not from that perspective. But I do, yeah, I think that I would. I don't know where I would go with that as far as we've looked. I looked at those, and from the price perspective, I'd rather use a regular. Mixer. I don't really like. I will admit, as someone who started with broadcast mixers, I don't really like broadcast mixers. I don't like the way that they're set up, and so that's the problem. Is that I would rather use a regular mixer that has all the tools that I'm used to, as opposed to something that's kind of funneled, kind of squeezed in. So, next question.
Tommy Chance in St. Paul, Minnesota asks, where can one get a robust intro into what it takes to get into cloud production? I know getting involved with office hours is one way, but where else could one get a jump start?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any one place that I've ever seen that is good. About the best that I've found is the AWS has a skills builder course that has about 20 hours of content, and it is a lot to get through, but it gives a lot of the foundations, especially with the diagrams and showing you how stuff goes up and then how it goes across and how to create these different instances, as well as use their media tools for conversion. So it depends on what you want to do in the cloud. If you just want to do something simple, there's services. I'd recommend reaching out to folks in the community like Tucker and Jonas that do this stuff all the time and can save you a considerable amount of time, especially as far as the instance creation and setting up the security groups. So those are what stop a lot of people. And we did do a 3-day tutorial here in office hours. It was 3 Fridays, and that is in the archive. So if you go to officehours.global and then you type in AWS, you'll hit this 3-day event where we walk through from soup to nuts how to do it. And a lot of that information, even though it was a couple of years ago, it's still relevant. A few things have changed, but for the most part, I went back and skimmed over it, and it's still very relevant. I just like the fact that Jonas and Tucker now have these CloudFormation scripts that they've built because they've built so many of these. So instead of having to do what we do manually in those tutorials, they just automate it. So we can build a whole fresh instance and duplicate. We can do 20 of these, no problem, just by hitting one button. So it's nice. And I'd also look at what they introduced with CloudFlex, because with CloudFlex, they just make it super simple and do all the work for you. So if you just want to get your hands dirty and just get into it, then I would say it's Skills Builder, and then go talk to Jonas and Tucker, or just go look up their website, CloudFlex, and learn a little bit more.
Yeah, and I would just, as a reminder, I know you know this, but there are volunteer positions open for the evening shows, the extra hours and specials that are using BizVector, and I would recommend thinking about becoming part of that team, so that they're already doing a lot of that work and starting to, again, it's going to be, there are some pretty heavy rails there just to make it work. But I would say that it's a good way to kind of get your head around what's actually happening there. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, and that's a shortcut too. By becoming a volunteer, you see how we do it ourselves in the real world, and you get a lot of tips and tricks from people like Jeff Keithley that do this stuff with even bigger tools, like Sienna. And so when you see how we work around some of these things by not having to spend $14,000, actually it's half price now, I think it's $7,500, but we can get around that by using different tools. So there's different things for comms. And that's the other thing is like, how do you communicate? So you start to see how we're using space comms or we're using Unity. So there's a lot more to just using the cloud. The other thing is BizVector does have some, what do we call them? Basically, there's templates already made inside of the marketplace that you could go and grab. And inside of there's a PDF that walks you through everything. So for the most relevant, up-to-date information, I would go install that BizVector marketplace instance. And
you can also shadow cut extra hours as well. So you could do exactly what Guy's doing, talking about, build it up on AWS and actually join our extra hours. We're encouraging people to do that with Vector, to join it and cut their own show and see what it looks like.
Yeah, so the AMI is what it's called, an Amazon Machine Instance. It's already everything done, like, because there's weird things like turn on camera permissions and security and all this stuff. It walks you through all of that, and then you could just shadow cut extra hours, because there's all your sources every week. So now you have real live content, and you could listen to other people saying, give me the 2-up and how to build those MEs. That's the other crazy thing about this group and the knowledge, is that this is years of experience to glean that you won't find on the Skills Builder course, because Jeff does this stuff for racing events and for live broadcasts for tennis. And so these are the real working professionals. So if you want to get into this, definitely shadow cut extra hours, and we'd love to have you, because that's what we're about. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Washington, D.C. wants to know, for dynamic handheld microphones, are there options that have more gain and output than the SM58?
There definitely is. I mean, Sennheiser makes a couple of them as well. I mean, I think that I haven't had much trouble when I'm using the SM58 because I'm always plugging it into something that has enough gain to take care of it. So I haven't thought that hard about it. Mickey said that SM58s provide sufficient signal for what they're designed for. I would review the gain staging. Yeah. So, I mean, and now the primary way that I use SM58s is with electrosonic mic plug. So I admit that I'm using a pretty high quality solution to tie that together. And so as a result, I mean, with electrosonic, at least it's working great. I've also, and Robert Lindstrom also talked about is mentioning Bear, Dynamic, and SE are other ones you might want to look at as well. Next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach says, here's an example file. Can you demo a quick preview of this animation from the Mac Finder? Oh, boy. Okay. Yes.
Go ahead, Jason.
So I looked at the file. I pulled down the file. Your codec is correct. It says that you have an alpha channel, but something about your output is simply wrong. There are lots and lots and lots of ways to do this. But I would just pull it in and look at it frame by frame. Because, it's just something is wrong in your encoder.
Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, it's interesting that it doesn't show it. I mean, it stills, I have to admit that I don't really think that hard about this because usually if I have black over, I'm going to open up Keynote or I'm going to open up Motion and just throw it in there. So that would be and I know that you're trying to find something faster than that, but that would be the way I would typically do it to preview something. I'm just going to see if it actually. I just said that, and let's see here. This is my slide here. We'll just grab this, and if we pull this over and you can't see it, then it's going to be problematic. Let's see. Let's just drag this in. Yeah, it's there. So anyway, there's your animation. But for me, just dragging it into Keynote would be easier. It would also give me a sense of what the resolution is and so on and so forth. Next question.
Looks like the last one. Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, compare the fiscal health and future viability of Disney, Comcast, Warner, and Paramount using all four of their income statements. Oh, great. Last question.
Yeah, good guy.
Yeah, that's really tough to do. I mean, when you look at this, you can't just look at the numbers for any company based just on what a shareholder expects, which is the income statement, so profit and loss. There's something else called a triple bottom line, which is taking more into account the long-term notion of what's going on with the people, the planet, prosperity. There's different things that you want to analyze because short-term thinking can make it juice the bottom line for a quarter. And this is the thing that's terrible about certain companies that get investors to make them management to act certain ways. So you got to just be careful about looking at these numbers and income statements based on short-term things that are going on. You really want to look at it holistically as a long-term. Are the people happy? What's the attrition rate? What is for these, what are the subscribers doing? Is there competition? Is AI going to affect them? There's so many other things going on.
I don't know if the tariffs are really going to happen because that's crazy. And we most of the time what we've seen so far is pretty outlandish claims, and then things get rolled back. And I just think that just doesn't seem like it. There's no version of that. How do you even figure it out? It will take. What'll happen is that we'll remember that it was said, but 6 months from now, I'll be very surprised. I'm not saying that there's zero chance, but I'd be very surprised if anything actually happens here, because it's just, I think everyone in Hollywood immediately, what they want is tax incentives. That's not what they did not ask for, is tariffs. They asked for something. I think they've learned, stop asking for things because it may not come out the way you want. Stop campaigning for things like that. I think Hollywood in general is, they're trying to figure out what to do next. They're building a lot of things overseas. That the problem really is the cash cow of theaters is it's no longer consistent. It's not that it's zero. There are definitely Sinners has done really well. Thunderbolts looks like it's doing really well. So there are still big tentpole theaters. I think that Mission Impossible is going to blow the doors off. I don't know. The PR campaign for Mission Impossible, aka Tom Cruise's great campaign. If you look at all of this stuff, all they do is talk about Tom Cruise. Like, it's got to be something in somebody's contract about that, because it's getting to the point where it's just like all we talk about is Tom Cruise. Now, he may be worth talking about. It's his movie, but it's amazing that all of Mission Impossible is really just about Tom Cruise at this point.
Being awesome.
Yeah, like how awesome he is and everything else. It's getting a little over the top, but I will say that one's probably going to do pretty well. That said, films, you just don't know what films are going to do well and what aren't. They used to be they were kind of bankable, and they're not anymore. Disney and Comcast both have diversification. I think Warner and Paramount are probably a little closer to the cliff, so to speak. So anyway, so I think that's if you're going to ask for what those are, I think that Disney's probably got the least to worry about, and then Comcast, and then Warner, and then Paramount, which is kind of the list that they gave here on the article that you put up. But I think that would be in that order that they have there, would probably be pretty accurate. Thanks so much for all the great questions. Keep the hour going. Again, a lot of times we get to the beginning of the hour and we're like, oh, this will be a short show. And it never is, or almost never is. So anyway, great questions from the producers. Remember, if we ever don't get to the end of those questions, we did today, we'll always kick them back to you, and you can, they're in your notes, which is a little hamburger in the upper right. If you're in Mukana, if you're doing it through a QR code, it'll go back automatically. But thank you so much. Your questions drive this entire show. And thanks to the panelists. It's great having this conversation with all of you here. We really appreciate having you here on the show. We can't do this without you. And thanks to the incredible team on the back end that makes this possible. 5 days a week in the morning, then on Saturdays and Sundays with different teams, and then on evenings we have lots of shows going on, and more shows happening, and a great different set of teams that make all of this possible. We have not missed a day since March 25th, 2020. It's crazy, because of your questions, because of the panelists, because of the incredible team in engineering and development that happens on the back end. It's incredible. So thank you to all the effort that it takes to make this actually possible. Today, the Tlaloc Traversal, if we had done this in person, we would have traveled 87,000 miles. That's 140,000 kilometers, and that is 689 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours.
Yeah, Tom Cruise basically might as well, under the dictionary, just be like, cult of personality, see Tom Cruise.
Well, it's been a bit of real built. I mean, people are they were in this kind of Tom Cruise's crazy kind of thing in the background, and then it's become like, then he's gotten cool, but I'm afraid if they keep pushing it harder, it is amazing. I mean, there's this behind the scenes shot of him, his shirt's off and everything else, and you're like, he is in his 60s. You're just
he's like an AARP member.
What is going on? And he's still hanging. I mean, he's going to be like, he's going to be like 92 years old hanging off of a plane somewhere, like that. I would not be surprised. So
I've got to say, Mavericks is one of the best cut, best paced movies
it's really good.
of any sequel ever.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.